Why are women and children prioritized in safety problems? Before the invention of birth control, population growth was capped by disease, famine, and war. Given how quickly populations grew when industrial farming and modern medicine became a thing, it's clear that there was a lot of premature death before that time. Humanity has a lot of experience with disasters of this kind, enough that societies have evolved to what works best. When a society is forced by famine, war, or other catastrophes to lose a large fraction of its population, it can choose how to distribute those deaths by choosing which of its members face the highest risk. Societies that let their children die will encounter a bottleneck later down the road, where there are fewer young adults to take care of children and the elderly. Societies that let their women die will not be able to replenish as quickly if times suddenly become plentiful, causing them to be outcompeted. Societies that let their men die don't suffer nearly as much. The remaining men can impregnate all available women and keep the rate of children as high as possible. And men's physical strength is often most useful in dangerous situations as well. These upsides and downsides remain true until about 95% of men have died and the logistics of parenting become difficult. In short, women and children's safety is traditionally prioritized in disasters because they're best at repopulating, so societies that prioritize them are more likely to survive and prosper. Children because they're vulnerable and less able to protect themselves, and I think traditionally you would evacuate their mothers with them, as a young child wouldn't be able to take care of themselves. Not to George Costanza. Because in the 19th century there was this shipwreck where only men survived, who let their wives and kids drown. This caused a moral uproar in Victorian England, and it was agreed upon to first rescue women and kids. This went so deep into society's minds that it established itself as a moral rule. It was the SS Arctic disaster. This caused the sinking of the HMS Birkenhead to be handled with the rule women and children first. And it became common. If I recall correctly, historically it's been every man for himself, far more often than it's been women and children first. https qz.com/321827/women and children first is a maritime disaster mythitrilai every man for himself. This pretty much answers everything. https://www.ncbi.nlm.nih.gov/pmc/articles/pmc3421183/ They aren't anymore. That's an old-fashioned cliché. Nowadays you evacuate the people most in danger first, followed by everyone who can evacuate unassisted, then those needing assistance. The researchers have analyzed a database containing information about passengers and crew from 18 of the most notable shipwrecks during the period 1852 to 2011. It contains information about the fates of more than 15,000 people, which makes it the most extensive analysis of survival patterns in maritime disasters. Previous studies have been based on 2 disasters only: RMS Titanic, 1912, and RMS Lusitania, 1915. They show that the survival rate of women is substantially lower than the survival rate of men. This is irrespective of when in history the disaster occurred, or if the ship sank quickly or slowly. Children have the lowest survival rate, while the highest survival rates are observed for crew and captains. See Figure 1. The latter observation stands in sharp contrast to what we should expect if the crew follows procedures and assists passengers to safety before saving themselves. What makes Titanic exceptional? One possible explanation is how the leader, the captain, acts. say the researchers. On the Titanic, the captain ordered women and children first. Men who disobeyed the order risked being shot. On the ships where the captain gave the order, women and children first, the difference in survival rates between men and women is lower. But women survived to a higher extent than men only when this order was enforced by the threat of violence. This indicates an important role of leaders in the face of disasters. It is, however, unusual for captains to give such an order. Instead, it is common that captains leave the ship and save themselves before the passengers. https www.uu.se/n/press/press release/ id equals 1638 and type equals PM. Men will trample women and children if not forced not to. So you gotta pick one or the other way. So we can go with, men are stronger, if we want. But we have to also include, men are selfish cowards, alongside that. Oh, here is the full study. https://papers.ssrn.com/sol3/papers.cfm. Abstract id equals 2051006. They're not. That might have been true in the past. In some cases. But in modern crisis management, that's just not a thing. Prioritizing people adds a layer of management and crowd control to situations which costs lives. In modern disaster scenarios like a building fire, ship sinking or plane evacuation, you exit in the order you arrive at the exit, or you're rescued in the order the rescuers can get to you. In every case where questions like this can come up, keeping the flow of people moving as quickly as possible is what saves the most lives. No fireman is going to tell a man to wait in a burning building while he looks for women and kids. And the worst thing you can do in a plane crash is let people go ahead of you and create traffic jam in the aisle. There's a really interesting book called The Unthinkable: Who Survives When Disaster Strikes and Why, by Barbara Demick, and it goes into the modern theory of how to save the greatest number of people in disaster scenarios. There isn't a whiff of women and children first in any modern crisis management theory or disaster plan. The one time it really was a thing was on the Titanic. 75% of women, 50% of children, but only 19% of men on board survived. In that specific case, the captain announced women and children first. And people listened. Of course. First and second class passengers survived in greater numbers than third class passengers for men, women and children. So while it was women and children first in that case, it was really upper class women and children first, with only 49% of the women and 31% of the children in steerage surviving. Continuation of the species. Actually, they aren't. Read Invisible Women by Caroline Criado Perez. I guess someone watched Titanic. It's hilarious how the top comment here is a seemingly plausible and yet wrong answer. That tradition, if we can call it, that dates back to a specific shipwreck of a British ship. I think off the west coast of northern Africa somewhere. The captain ordered at IIRC and it become tradition. Don't remember who survived and who didn't though. Because whenever disaster or war happen, it's easier for the society to have women to restore population. 1 man and 40 women vs 40 men and 1 woman. The prior can restore population by 40 per year, while the latter can restore population by 1 per year. And for the children, they are the growing, about to be next generation. If they suddenly die, there is literally no generation to lead. And it becomes a gap. A huge setback during the next whole era. Of course, men are also indeed important, but they are somewhat replaceable compared to others. They are priorities in some regards. Besides that, a lot of security features are optimized for male parameters. E.g., for decades the car test dummies were only heavy and large, male, dummies. Medication is optimized for male patients since it is easier to test with people without significant hormonal changes. For a while, without those norms being pushed, men were just leaving them behind. And since women wore less practical clothing and had less training, experience and wrangled children, they had a really low survival rate. I'm surprised nobody mentioned the fact that women and children were trampled over by men. Reproduction. Because if it was like, everyone kill as many people you can and save yourself by force, only men would survive. And then who will make babies? Simple. Because if men aren't culturally trained to protect women and children, they literally trampled them to get to safety first, and then, oops, no women or children are left after the storm.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epic Ericast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.